I'm Jack Bradley in for Steve Lance tonight. As President Trump marks his first 6 months in office, the White House today touting his achievements in various sectors. It comes as Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard makes another move after releasing new documents on the 2016 election probe. NTD's White House correspondent Mari Atsu has more.
The president really promised the American people many things, but at the top of that list was to defeat the Biden inflation crisis.
The press secretary this afternoon celebrated the accomplishments of the first 6 months of President Trump's second term. Leavitt touted Trump's administration as the most transparent in history and congratulated the president on securing the border.
Inflation is now running at a 2.1% annual rate. 0 illegal aliens were released into our country. And then look at what the president has done on the world stage. He has ended wars like India and Pakistan. He continues to work aggressively to end the war in Russia and Ukraine. He completely obliterated Iran's nuclear sites.
In other news, today the Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard released over 200,000 MLK assassination files. This comes after President Trump in January ordered agencies to declassify documents related to the assassinations of former President JFK, former Attorney General Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King.
We're doing it with Dr. Martin Luther King, too. They're preparing all of that. They're going to release everything.
On Sunday, Gabbard also confirmed that she made criminal referrals to the FBI and Department of Justice about the findings of the documents she released on Friday. Gabbard's office says that the declassified documents it released show new evidence that the Obama administration, quote, manufactured and politicized intelligence to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. The newly released documents state that in the months leading up to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community assessed that Russia was not trying to influence the election using cyber means. The report adds that, despite the assessment, in the months following the election, Obama officials leaked false statements to media outlets claiming that Russia attempted to hack the election. Here's the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, talking about these documents.
This treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office, after President Trump had already gotten elected. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic.
Since the release of these documents on Friday, President Trump has taken to Truth Social to praise Tulsi Gabbard for her work in exposing what he calls, quote, the highest level of election fraud. Reporting from the White House, Mari Atsu, NTD News.
Attorneys for Harvard University are arguing their case against the freeze on $2 billion in federal research funding. NTD's Arlene Richards has more.
Legal arguments on Monday push for a final decision rather than temporary restraints. Harvard University and Justice Department lawyers both asked a federal judge to make a final ruling in their favor. The case involves a $2 billion funding freeze ordered by the Trump administration over what they believe is the school's failure to address anti-Semitism on its campus. Judge Allison Burroughs of the Massachusetts U.S. District Court heard arguments but didn't make a final ruling. The university's lawyers specifically asked in a court filing that Burroughs be assigned to this case because of her involvement in a related case that includes Harvard. Harvard's attorney argued on Monday that it was unlawful for the government to condition the university's use of the grants on what students and faculty say, referring to the government's accusations that Harvard had failed to prevent anti-Semitism on its campus. Harvard says this condition violates the university's First Amendment rights. In court filings, the school accuses the Trump administration of retaliation after it rejected a series of demands from a federal anti-Semitism task force. The school argued that the freeze puts the university's medical, scientific, and technological research at risk. The Justice Department denied the freeze was done in retaliation, saying the grants were under review even before a demand letter was sent in April. It argued that universities are not automatically entitled to federal funding. In a court filing, the government said funds were issued through contracts with explicit conditions that must be met to avoid cancellation. It claims the university's constitutional arguments are misplaced and are being used as a way to get around the law that really applies in this case. Both sides are asking for an expedited final decision rather than having an extended trial. The case has been combined with a similar one filed by Harvard faculty. If Judge Burroughs decides in the university's favor, the ruling would reverse a series of funding freezes and could revive Harvard's scientific and medical research operation. President Trump is already anticipating the judge will rule against the government. He said in a Truth Social post, "When she rules against us, we will immediately appeal and win." Arlene Richards, NTD News.
A second suspect has been arrested following the shooting of an off-duty Customs and Border Patrol agent in New York City. The Department of Homeland Security says that both suspects are in the country illegally. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
2 suspects have been arrested after an off-duty Customs and Border Patrol agent was shot in a New York City park. Both suspects crossed into the country illegally, and both have had court orders to be removed since 2023, according to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
Our officer was off-duty on Saturday evening when him and his friend were attacked. They were attacked by 2 individuals that were set on robbing them.
The officer is recovering from his wounds.
Thankfully, he had his service weapon with him and was able to defend himself and his friend, and injured one of those individuals that was trying to do them harm.
The wounded suspect was later identified and arrested after walking into a hospital to treat his wounds from the incident. Noem says that he has a long criminal history.
Arrested 4 different times in New York City, and because of the mayor's policies and was released back to do harm to people and to individuals living in this city.
On Monday, a second suspect was arrested, who's due to appear in federal court on Monday. Noem says he also has a criminal record. Noem and White House Board Czar Tom Homan blame, quote, sanctuary city policies for these suspects being released after their previous arrests.
Every sanctuary city is unsafe. I'll say it again, sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. And I'm going to work very hard for Secretary Noem to keep President Trump's promise and his commitment several weeks ago that sanctuary cities are now our priority.
They're protecting criminals who go out and murder, rape, rob. They perpetuate violence on our children. They traffic them and drugs and damage this country every single day.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams reacts to the shooting.
You know how outraged I am because of Andrew's bail reform laws. So I am extremely angry that we have a Customs Border Patrol officer that is in the hospital because a person that should have not been on our street was on our street.
Noem says that assaults on federal agents have risen nearly 700%. She says that people are trying to reveal their identities with the intention to intimidate and threaten them and their families. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
What are some of the initiatives Congress is working on to help small businesses? And how is President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill legislation working? NTD's Steve Lance spoke earlier with Republican Texas Congressman Roger Williams.
Congressman Roger Williams, thanks so much for joining us.
Always good to be with you.
Thank you so much, Congressman. So as an entrepreneur yourself, you've been really focused on initiatives that are helping small businesses in Congress. What are some of the biggest ones on your plate right now?
Well, Main Street America, as you know, represents half the payroll, half the workforce in America. 99% of businesses in America are small businesses. So it's true entrepreneurship, risk and reward, the American dream. And so some of the things we've been focused on to get Main Street cranking and get them to stay getting after it is SBA. We're working with Kelly Loeffler a lot with the SBA. So people can actually borrow money, realize that they got a chance to make a good living. Have an SBA that doesn't focus on electioneering like it did under the Biden administration, but focus on getting people started in business and staying in business. We've passed some legislation, actually. We found out, too, that you could be an illegal and get an SBA loan. Well, we've stopped that. We've looked at sanctuary cities that had small SBA offices in them, and we removed our process of removing the SBA offices from the sanctuary city. There's no reason somebody's trying to adhere to the law should be borrowing money from somebody who's breaking the law. So those are the kind of things we're after, very aggressive toward Main Street, keeping it simple, making sure the banks know what they're loaning, make sure the borrower knows what they're borrowing, and just make it easy for people to get started. And I say, realize the American dream. They've been working under the American scheme so long now, we want to turn it around and let them realize that risk and reward is what built this country.
Talk to us about what you mean when you say the SBA was involved in election engineering. And also, it's really hard to believe. You're saying that at one point not too long ago, as a previous small business owner, I know SBA loans were always very tough to get for even American citizens. But you're saying that at one point, even an illegal immigrant could get an SBA loan.
Unbelievable, isn't it? An illegal immigrant can break the law, come in here and get money from the SBA when you as a small business owner might have jumped through hoops you can't realize and you don't get it. So that's wrong. So we've stopped that. We've also raised the cap for manufacturing from $5 million to $10 million that they can borrow on, which will expand their business, let them grow, let them hire more people. And then we talk about electioneering. We discovered through a whistleblower last year that the SBA was taking their people out of the field, trying to help small business, and putting them in with memos of understanding from some of the Minnesota, Michigan, and registering Democratic voters. That's not their purview, so we stopped that.
Wow, that's incredible. On top of that, obviously Texas is a huge border state. The situation at the border, from what I understand, has dramatically changed. Is that the real feel that you're getting?
It's the feeling President Trump has stopped. I mean, you might have seen one day there were 0 crossings, but we've done the right thing. We've stopped the illegal movement in, slowed it down. Look, we want you to realize the dream. We want you to go through the ports of entry, not between the ports of entry. We don't want you hurting police. We don't want you hurting families. We don't want you killing animals. That's just a bad decision. And if you decide to do that, you need to go back and not come back. Because we're a land of law, but we're a land of opportunity, too.
Lastly, I want to get your thoughts on the One Big Beautiful bill that's recently passed. The president really believes that the growth that's going to come from this bill is going to be the dividing line that separates it from being something that adds to the deficit. As a businessman yourself, how are you seeing this bill? What type of growth are you hoping to see?
Playing out great in my area, and people are excited about it. And when you cut taxes and you cut regulations, you create more opportunity, you create more jobs, you create more taxpayers, you create more cash flow. And that's what this bill will do. And if we can ever get our expenses in line, we might have a time that we do get balanced. But this was never to be a balanced bill. This is a cash flow bill. It's to create more cash going through the system, more opportunity. It's a silo of cash, not a silo of cutting expenses. We can do that at a later date. But it will work. It's already working. Couple that with the tariffs, the extra income we've gotten in the tariffs. We're going to have a great economy. And I'm in the car business, so I'm one of the first to feel the pain, as they say. And I can tell you, people are excited. In my district, they're excited about tax cuts. They're excited about less regulations. They're excited about a border wall. They're excited about giving the military a pay increase. They're excited about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, cutting taxes on Social Security. I mean, that shoves a lot of money in the system, and we know when people make money, they don't save it, they spend it, and that's what we want. That's entrepreneurship in the capital way.
Congressman Roger Williams, really appreciate it.
Good to see you, as always.